Last time we cited a theorem without proving it. Here is the proof, the only one Fermat ever wrote out in full. Last time we met infinite descent and left one theorem hanging cited but not proved. This is that theorem. No right triangle whose three sides are whole numbers has an area that is a perfect square. Not one ever. Fermat announced the method of descent in a letter to Carcavi in August of 1659 and sketched this very application in it. But the argument in full survives somewhere else, written into the margin of his own copy of Diophantus and published by his son 11 years later. It is the only complete proof Fermat ever left behind, which makes this the one place we can watch his method at his own hand rather than reconstructing it. And the descent this time does not shrink a solution of an equation. It shrinks a triangle into a smaller triangle, which is a very concrete thing to watch happen. Start by getting a feel for how close you can get. The 3, 4, 5 triangle has area 6, 5, 12, 13 has area 30, then 84, 182, 110. Do you expect one of these to land on a square if we keep going? None of them does, and they never seem to. Search confirms it as far as it can see. Among every right triangle with whole number sides and legs below 2000, not one area is a perfect square. But a search can never prove there's nothing further out. For that, we need the structure of the triangles themselves. So begin the way every descent begins, by assuming the thing we want to forbid. Suppose at least one right triangle with whole number sides does have a perfect square area. Then, among all such triangles, there is one whose hypotenuse is smallest because a set of positive whole numbers always has a least element. That triangle is a target. If we can build a smaller one, we are finished. And we may assume its sides share no common factor. Here is why that assumption costs nothing. Any triangle is some whole number k times a triangle with no common factor, and scaling the sides by k scales the area by k squared. So if the scaled area is a perfect square, then k squared divides that square. And that forces k itself to divide the root. A prime occurring e times in k occurs 2e times in k squared. So at least 2e times in the square, and therefore at least e times in the root. Write the root as k times t, and the inner area is exactly t squared. Concretely, 6, 8, 10 has area 24, and the primitive triangle inside it, 3, 4, 5, has area 6. 24 is 2 squared times 6. So had 24 been a perfect square, 6 would have had to be 1 as well. Dividing out a common factor never destroys a counterexample. It only hands us a smaller one. Before any of that one small lemma, it is the engine of this entire proof, and we will reach for it 3 times. If two coprime positive numbers multiply to a perfect square, then each of them is separately a perfect square. Positive matters. -1 times -1 is a square, and neither factor is y. In a perfect square, every prime occurs an even number of times. Ordinarily, one factor could carry an odd number of copies of a prime and let the other factor make up the difference. But coprime factors share no prime at all, so there is no difference to make up. Each factor has to balance its own primes, which is exactly what being a square means. Now, the lemma earns its keep immediately because it tells us the shape of every one of these triangles. Call the legs x and y and the hypotenuse h. Exactly one leg is even. 2 odd legs would make the hypotenuse squared leave a remainder of 2 on division by 4, and no square does that. Let y be the even one. Move x across. The even leg squared is h minus x times h plus x. Both h and x are odd, so both of those factors are even. Halve each of them, and the left side becomes y over 2 squared. Those two halves are coprime because they add to h and differ by x. So common divisor of the halves divides both h and x. And h and x themselves share nothing. A prime dividing both would divide h squared minus x squared, which is y squared. So it would divide all 3 sides, and the triangle was primitive. two co-prime numbers multiplying to a square. By the lemma, each is a square, say p squared and q squared. Unwind, and the legs are p squared minus q squared and 2pq with hypotenuse p squared plus q squared. Every such triangle comes from one pair p bigger than q, and that pair is co-prime with one of them even and one odd. With the shape in hand, compute the area of our smallest offender and factor it as far as it will go. Half the product of the legs is pq times p squared minus q squared. And that difference of two squares splits, leaving four factors, pqp minus q and p plus q. Four numbers all built out of the same two. Everything now turns on how those four relate to one another. Before I tell you, look at those four numbers and ask what any two of them could possibly have in common. The answer is nothing. They are pairwise coprime. Take any two of them, and they share no prime at all. P and Q are coprime already, so that pair costs us nothing. Any common factor of P and P minus Q would have to divide their difference, which is Q. But P and Q share nothing, so there is no such factor. The same argument settles P against P plus Q and Q against both. The last pair takes one more line. Since P and Q have opposite parity, P minus Q and P plus Q are both odd, so any common divisor of the two of them is odd as well. That divisor divides their sum twice P and their difference twice Q. Being odd, it cannot be using the factor of 2, so it divides P and Q themselves. Impossible. So we have a product of four pairwise coprime numbers, and by assumption, it is a perfect square. What does the lemma force on each one? There it is in the one line we came for. The area of our triangle is a square, and its four factors are pairwise coprime. So each of them is separately a perfect square. P is a squared, Q is b squared, P minus Q is c squared, and P plus Q is d squared. Four squares all forced at once, and that is the whole harvest. And this is Fermat's move. Take those four numbers and build a new triangle out of them. Legs d minus c and d plus c, hypotenuse 2a. Both legs are positive whole numbers because p plus q is plainly bigger than p minus q, so d squared beats c squared and d beats c. Check that it closes. The two legs squared add to twice c squared plus twice d squared. But c squared is p minus q and d squared is p plus q, so that sum is 4p. And p is a squared, so 4p is 2a squared. Pythagoras is satisfied exactly. This is a genuine right triangle with whole number sides conjured out of nothing but the four squares the previous step handed us. The new triangle is only useful if it has the same forbidden property, so compute its area. Half the product of the legs is d squared minus c squared over 2. That is p plus q minus p minus q all halved, which collapses to exactly q. And q is b squared, so the new triangle carries the same disease as the old one, whole number sides and an area that is a perfect square. We have not escaped the situation. We have reproduced it, which would be no progress at all except for one thing. The new triangle is smaller. Its hypotenuse is 2a. The old one's was p squared plus q squared, which is a to the fourth plus b to the fourth. And a is at least 2 because p equals a squared and p is bigger than q, which is at least 1. Already at a equals 2, the new hypotenuse is 4, while the old one is at least 17. And from there, the gap only widens. So we started from the triangle with the smallest hypotenuse of them all and built one with a smaller hypotenuse. That cannot be. The assumption was false, and the theorem is proved. No right triangle with whole number sides has a square area. One direction is not enough though, and it is worth being careful about which one we have. We showed a forbidden triangle produces a solution of that quartic. To rule the quartic out, we need the reverse. First, it is enough to handle solutions where x and y are coprime. If they share a factor g, write x as g, x and y as gy, then z squared is g to the fourth times x to the fourth minus y to the fourth. So g to the fourth divides z squared, which means g squared divides z, and dividing through leaves a solution in x and y with no common factor. So take a coprime solution with x and y of opposite parity. The left side factors as x squared minus y squared times x squared plus y squared, and those two factors are coprime. A common divisor divides twice x squared and twice y squared, hence divides 2, and both factors are odd. Coprime factors multiplying to a square. The lemma for the third time, each is a square, say c squared and d squared. And now watch the construction come back. Legs d minus c and d plus c hypotenuse 2x. The legs squared add to twice c squared plus twice d squared, which is twice 2x squared, which is 2x all squared. Its area is d squared minus c squared over 2, which is exactly y squared. A right triangle with square area, which we have just spent the whole proof forbidding. The one remaining case is x and y both odd. Have the two factors first. The halves add to x squared and differ by y squared, so they are coprime, and their product is z over 2 squared. The lemma makes them squares c squared and d squared. Subtract those, d to the fourth minus c to the fourth is x squared times y squared, a fresh solution of the same quartic. And c and d have opposite parity because their squares sum to the odd number x squared. So the both odd case feeds into the case we just finished, and the quartic and the triangle stand or fall together. The proof is finished, but its structure quietly proved two more things on the way through. Multiply two of those four squares together. C squared times D squared is P minus Q times P plus Q, which is P squared minus Q squared, and that is A to the fourth minus B to the fourth. So a square area would also produce a solution of x to the fourth minus y to the fourth equals z squared, which means one single obstruction is wearing three faces. The geometric face is Fermat's own wording. No right triangle with whole number size has an area that is a perfect square. The algebraic face, x to the fourth minus y to the fourth, is never a perfect square unless one of them is 0, because such a solution would rebuild the triangle we just forbade. And the arithmetic face. No four distinct squares sit in arithmetic progression. That was the unpaid promise from last time, and it is this same obstruction in yet another costume. And the algebraic face pays one more dividend on the way out. Suppose x to the fourth plus y to the fourth equaled z to the fourth. Rearranged z to the fourth minus y to the fourth is x to the fourth, which is x squared squared. That is exactly the solution we just ruled out. So Fermat's last theorem at exponent 4 falls out of the triangle theorem for nothing. 350 years before anybody could handle the general exponent, which is a fair return on one letter and one triangle that would not stop shrinking.
Thanks for watching this. Subscribe to Thinking in Math channel for this and other interesting math topics. And we always welcome your feedbacks. Leave your questions and suggestions in the comments.